Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, staring at the stars through the massive viewing window. 3 years of war had aged him beyond his 52 years. His gray hair was thinner now, and deep lines marked his weathered face. But today, for the first time in months, he allowed himself to smile. The message had arrived that morning from Earth Command. The Zephyrian Empire wanted peace talks. After 3 bloody years of fighting across 12 star systems, the aliens were finally ready to negotiate. Morrison read the message again, hardly believing the words on his screen. The war had been brutal for both sides. Human colonies on the outer rim had been burned to ash. Entire families wiped out in orbital bombardments. The images still haunted Morrison's dreams. But humanity had fought back harder than anyone expected. The aliens thought humans would be easy prey, another weak species to conquer. They were wrong. Captain Ryan Torres walked onto the bridge, holding a datapad in his hands. Torres commanded the diplomatic ship Harmony, a sleek vessel built for peaceful missions. Unlike the Defiance with its heavy weapons and thick armor, the Harmony carried no guns. It was painted white with blue stripes, clearly marking it as a civilian vessel. "Admiral, I have the mission details," Torres said, his voice calm but tired. He had been fighting this war just as long as Morrison. "Ambassador Lisa Parker will lead the peace delegation. We depart in 6 hours." Morrison nodded. He knew Parker well. She was smart, tough, and one of the best negotiators humanity had. If anyone could make peace with the Zephyrians, it was her. She had ended 3 separate trade wars between human colonies before the alien invasion began. "What's our destination?" Morrison asked. "Neutral space, a station called Gamma 7 in the Kepler system." The Zephyrians suggested it, and Earth Command agreed. "It's far from both our territories." Torres looked uncomfortable. Morrison had known him for 15 years, since Torres was a young officer fresh from the academy. The captain was worried about something. "Speak your mind, Ryan," Morrison said. "It feels too easy, sir. 3 years of them trying to kill us all, and suddenly they want to talk. The Zephyrians don't give up, it's not in their nature." Morrison had the same concerns. The reptilian aliens were known for their stubborn pride. They never backed down from a fight once it started. Intelligence reports suggested they would rather die than admit defeat. So why were they asking for peace now? "Maybe they're finally tired of losing ships," Morrison said. "We've hurt them badly in the last 6 months. The Battle of New Mars cost them an entire fleet." Torres nodded but still looked worried. "I hope you're right, sir." 2 hours later, Ambassador Parker arrived on the Defiance. She was a small woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes. Despite the civilian clothes, she carried herself like a soldier. She had to after 3 years of war. "Admiral Morrison," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "Thank you for the escort to Kepler." "It's an honor, Ambassador. Are you ready for this?" Parker smiled, but Morrison could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "As ready as anyone can be. I've studied every piece of intelligence we have on Zephyrian culture. Their language, their customs, their way of thinking. I believe we can find common ground. What makes you think they're serious about peace? The same thing that makes us serious about it. We're both bleeding. Both sides have lost too much to keep fighting. Sometimes the smart thing to do is stop before you destroy each other completely." Morrison hoped she was right. The war had cost humanity dearly, not just in ships and soldiers, but in hope. People were scared. Children on Earth had never known a time without war. If Parker could end this, she would be remembered as a hero forever. The Harmony prepared to depart that evening. Morrison watched from the Defiance's bridge as the diplomatic ship powered up its engines. The white hull gleamed under the station. Lights, a symbol of hope in the darkness of space. Captain Torres contacted the Defiance one final time before jumping to hyperspace. "Admiral, we're ready to go. The delegation is secure aboard. Ambassador Parker wanted me to thank you again." "Tell her to bring back good news," Morrison replied. "The whole fleet is counting on her." "Will do, sir. See you in a few days." The Maoma Harmony's engines flared bright blue and the ship vanished into hyperspace. Morrison stared at the empty space where it had been, feeling a strange mix of hope and dread. On the diplomatic ship, Ambassador Parker sat in her quarters reviewing her notes one more time. Her security chief, Tom Bradley, had expressed the same concerns as Captain Torres. The timing felt wrong, but Parker had to believe this was real. The alternative was too terrible to consider. She opened a secure channel to record a message for Earth. If something went wrong, she wanted her words preserved. This is Ambassador Lisa Parker, recording on day 1 of the peace mission. I'm traveling to meet with the Zephyrian leadership at Gamma 7 Station. I know many people are skeptical about these talks. I understand their concerns. The Zephyrians have shown no mercy in this war, but I have to believe that even they understand the cost of continuing this fight. Both our species are capable of great things. We could explore the galaxy together instead of destroying each other. We could build something better than this endless cycle of violence. If these talks succeed, it will mark the beginning of a new era. Not just for humans and Zephyrians, but for all the intelligent species in our part of the galaxy. We could show that different peoples can find peace even after the worst conflicts. I'm not naive. I know the risks, but sometimes you have to take risks for the chance at something better. Tomorrow we'll find out if the Zephyrians truly want peace, or if this is just another part of their war. She ended the recording and sealed it in the ship's data core. Outside her window, stars streaked past as the Harmony raced toward what everyone hoped would be the end of the war. 3 days. Later they would reach Gamma 7 Station. 3 days later everything would change. The Harmony dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Torres stood on the bridge watching his screens as the ship's sensors swept the area. The neutral station Gamma 7 hung in space like a metal spider, its docking, arms reaching out into the void. Contact on sensors, reported navigator Kate Sullivan. It's the Zephyrian flagship Void Talon. She's holding position 2 kilometers from the station. Torres studied the massive alien ship through the viewing screen. The Void Talon was twice the size of any human vessel, its black hull covered in the strange symbols of the Zephyrian Empire. Smaller escort ships floated nearby like metal sharks. Any signs of weapons charging? Torres asked. Negative, sir. All systems appear to be in standby mode, replied Chief Engineer Danny Brooks from his station. Torres felt some of his tension ease. Maybe the peace talks were real after all. He opened a channel to Ambassador Parker in her quarters. Ambassador, we've arrived at Gamma 7. The Zephyrian delegation is already here and waiting. Excellent, Captain. How do they look? Peaceful. Enough. No sign of hostile activity. We'll dock in 10 minutes. Ambassador Parker gathered her small team in the ship's main corridor. Besides herself, the delegation included Security Chief Tom Bradley and Cultural Advisor Amy Chen. Bradley carried no weapons, following diplomatic protocol. Chen held a translation device, though most Zephyrians spoke basic human language. Remember, Parker told her team, we're here to end a war. Stay calm, stay professional, and let me do the talking unless they ask you a direct question. Bradley shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I still don't like this. Something feels wrong. Your job is to worry, Tom. That's why I brought you. But we have to trust the process. Both sides agreed to this meeting. The Harmony docked with Gamma 7 Station without incident. Parker led her team through the airlocks into the station's main corridor. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and metal polish. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. A station official met them at the entrance. He was human, part of the neutral government that ran Gamma 7. Ambassador Parker? I'm Director Collins. The Zephyrian delegation is waiting in Conference Room A, if you'll follow me. They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Parker tried to stay calm, but her heart was beating fast. This was the moment she had prepared for her entire career, end a war with words instead of weapons. The conference room was large and circular with a round table in the center. Tall windows looked out into space, showing the stars and the ships floating nearby. The Zephyrian delegation was already seated, on the far side of the table. High Counselor Vextar was the largest Zephyrian Parker had ever seen. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his reptilian skin a dark green color. Like all his species, his skin could change colors to show emotions and intentions. Right now it showed neutral blue patterns. Ambassador Parker, Vextar said in perfect human language. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. Welcome to Gamma 7. I am High Counselor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. High Counselor, Parker replied, bowing slightly as human diplomats had been taught. Thank you for agreeing to these talks. I believe we can find a path to peace. They sat at the table, humans on one side, Zephyrians on the other. Parker spread out her documents and data pads. She had spent weeks preparing her proposal. High Counselor, humanity comes here with an open hand. We propose an immediate ceasefire across all systems, followed by the establishment of clear territorial boundaries. Neither side will enter the other's space without permission. Vextar listened without speaking. His skin remained the neutral blue color. The other Zephyrians around the table stayed equally quiet. We also suggest trade agreements, Parker continued. Our species have different strengths. Humans are good at building and creating. Your people are excellent at military organization and discipline. Together we could accomplish great things. Tell me, Ambassador, Vextar said slowly, why do you think your species deserves to exist? The question caught Parker off guard. I'm sorry? Your species spreads like a disease. You take world after world, building your colonies, consuming resources. You multiply without control. Why should the galaxy allow this? Amy Chen shifted nervously beside Parker. This wasn't going according to plan. Bradley's hand moved closer to his belt, where his weapon would be if he were allowed to carry one. High Counselor, every species has the right to grow and explore. Humans aren't unique in this. Your own empire spans dozens of worlds. We take worlds for strength for the empire. You take them for breeding like animals. You have no control, no discipline. Parker felt the first real stab of fear. This wasn't negotiation. This was something else entirely. High Counselor, we came here in good faith. Both our species have suffered in this war. Surely we can find common ground. Vexitar's skin began to change. The blue patterns shifted to red and black stripes. Amy Chen gasped and reached for her translator. Those are aggressive markings, she whispered to Parker. Territorial threat display. Bradley was already standing, moving toward the door, but it was too late. Zephyrian soldiers poured into the room from hidden panels in the walls. They carried energy weapons, all pointed at the human delegation. Parker rose from her chair, hands raised. This is a violation of diplomatic protocol, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We came here under a flag of truce. Vextar stood, to his full height, his skin now showing pure black with red slashes. There is no truce for the plague species. There is no immunity for those who would infect the galaxy. You're making a mistake, Parker said. If you kill us, humanity will never stop fighting. This war will go on forever. No, Vextar replied. This war will end today. With your deaths, human morale will break. Your fleets will surrender, rather, than face what comes next. The Zephyrian soldiers raised their weapons. Parker opened her mouth to speak, but the words died in her throat. She thought of Earth, of all the people counting on her to bring peace. Captain Torres, she said into her communication device, her voice carrying across space to the Harmony. They never wanted peace. They wanted us defenseless. Don't let our deaths be in vain. The energy weapons fired. Ambassador Lisa Parker died still trying to warn her people. On the Harmony, Captain Torres heard the transmission cut to static. Alarms began screaming across his bridge as Zephyrian fighters launched from the Void Talon. Emergency departure, Torres shouted. All power to engines. But the Harmony was a diplomatic ship, built for peace, not war. She had no weapons, no armor, no chance against the alien fighters closing in. The ship lasted less than 2 minutes. In Dudindian, the conference room, High Counselor Vexitar looked down at the bodies of the human delegation. Signal the fleets, he told his aide. Begin the final assault. The humans are defenseless now. Today, we end this war forever. He was wrong about that, but he would never live to realize his mistake. The bridge of the Defiance fell silent when the transmission ended. Admiral Morrison stared at the communication console, unable to believe what he had just heard. Ambassador Parker's final words echoed in his mind. They never wanted peace. They wanted us defenseless. Communications Officer Lucy Grant turned in her chair, her face pale. Admiral, I'm receiving emergency signals from across the fleet. Zephyrian forces are attacking human positions in 3 different sectors. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. The betrayal wasn't just murder. It was a carefully planned military operation. While humanity had pulled back its fleets for the peace talks, the aliens had been moving into position for a massive attack. Get me fleet command, Morrison ordered, and contact all ship captains immediately. Tactical Officer Steve Rodriguez looked up from his screens. Sir, I have reports coming in from the frontier colonies. New Denver is under attack. The mining stations at Aurora Belt have gone silent. They hit us everywhere at once. Morrison felt rage burning in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Anger without purpose would get more people killed. He needed to think like a soldier, not like a man who had just watched friends die. Captain, Helen Foster's image appeared on the main screen. She commanded the heavy cruiser Retribution, one of the most powerful ships in the fleet. Her usually calm face was twisted with fury. Admiral, my sensors show at least 50 Zephyrian ships moving toward human space. They use the peace talks as cover to get their fleets in position. How many of our people are dead? Morrison asked. We don't know yet, sir. But it's bad. Really bad. More reports flooded in over the next hour. The attack was even worse than Morrison had feared. The Zephyrians had hit 12 human colonies at the same time. Orbital bombardments were turning cities into ash. Civilian evacuation ships were being targeted and destroyed. Colonel Matt Williams arrived on the bridge, still wearing his combat uniform. The Marine commander's face was stone cold. Admiral, I've just received word from Earth Command. They're authorizing Protocol Zero. Morrison's eyes widened. Protocol Zero was humanity's most classified military doctrine. It had been developed during the early years of space colonization, designed for use against enemies who threatened human extinction. It had never been used in interstellar warfare. Are they sure? Morrison asked. The president signed the order. Personally. The Zephyrians wanted to see us at our weakest. Instead, they're about to discover what we're like when we stop holding back. Morrison nodded slowly. For 3 years, humanity had fought this war with restraint. They had tried to minimize civilian casualties. They had followed the old rules of warfare, treating enemy prisoners well and avoiding attacks on non-military targets. That time was over. Signal all fleet commanders, Morrison said. Implement Protocol Zero immediately. All restrictions on weapons usage are removed. No mercy for enemy combatants. No quarter given to ships that resist. Lucy Grant hesitated at her console. Sir, that includes civilian targets on Zephyrian worlds. They made their choice when they murdered our ambassador under a flag of truce, Morrison replied. Send the signal. The news of the betrayal spread through the human fleet like wildfire. On every ship in every squadron, the reaction was the same. The crews had been ready to celebrate peace. Instead, they learned that their diplomats had been slaughtered like animals. Captain Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the destroyer Vengeance, reading the new orders that had just come through. Her weapons officer looked up from his station with a grim smile. Ma'am, we're authorized to use the experimental gravity weapons. No restrictions. Kim nodded. The gravity weapons were based on technology humanity had developed for asteroid mining. They could tear apart solid rock by manipulating gravitational fields. The military had always wondered what they would do to enemy ships. Now they would find out. On the stealth ship Ghost Rider, Captain Pete Anderson received a special mission directly from Admiral Morrison. Anderson was one of humanity's best special operations commanders. His ship was equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humans had ever built. Captain Anderson, you're authorized for deep penetration strikes behind enemy lines. Your primary target is the command station that coordinated the betrayal. High Counselor Vextar is aboard that station. Anderson's crew was already preparing for launch. They had been waiting 3 years for a chance like this. The Zephyrians thought they were clever, using human desire for peace against them. They were about to learn that humanity could be just as ruthless as any alien species. Dr. Nina Walsh worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the science vessel Discovery. As humanity's leading expert on alien biology, she had been studying Zephyrian technology and physiology for years. Now her research had a new purpose. "Commander Stone," she called to the ship's engineering officer, "I need you to look at these bioscans. I think I've found a weakness in their atmospheric systems." Commander Rachel Stone studied the data. "You mean we could target their life support?" "Not just target it. We could modify our industrial equipment to create atmospheric processors. That would be toxic to Zephyrian biology. Turn their own air against them." Stone smiled coldly. "I'll get my teams working on it immediately." Across human space, the transformation was happening on every world, every station, every ship. Humanity's vast industrial complex was being converted for war. Mining lasers became ship-killing weapons. Terraforming equipment was modified into planet crackers. Civilian cargo haulers were fitted with military weapons. But the biggest change was in the humans themselves. For 3 years they had fought with honor, following the rules of civilized warfare. They had tried to be better than their enemies. The Zephyrians had just taught them that honor was a luxury they couldn't afford. Admiral Morrison stood before a wall-sized screen showing the deployment of human forces across the galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian positions. Blue dots showed human fleets moving to intercept them. "They thought they understood us," Morrison said to Colonel Williams. "They studied our psychology, our culture, our history. They decided we were weak because we value peace." "What they didn't understand," Williams replied, "is that our desire for peace comes from knowing what we're capable of. When we don't hold back." Morrison nodded. "Send a message to all human forces. Tell them that Ambassador Parker and her team died trying to prevent this war from escalating. Now it's our job to make sure their sacrifice wasn't meaningless." The message went out across human space within hours. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member heard the same words. The Zephyrians had wanted to break human morale by killing their diplomats. Instead, they had just made humanity very, very angry. Captain Pete Anderson's stealth ship Ghost Rider moved through space like a shadow. The advanced human technology made his vessel invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Anderson had been hunting for 2 weeks since receiving his orders from Admiral Morrison. Now he had found his target. The Zephyrian command station hung in space like a giant metal flower. Its 6 arms stretched out from a central hub, each one bristling with communication arrays and defensive weapons. This was the station that had coordinated the betrayal at Gamma 7. High Counselor Vextar was somewhere inside. "Range to target?" Anderson asked his weapons officer. 2,000 meters and closing, sir. All stealth systems are operating normally. They don't know we're here." Anderson studied the station through his view screen. Dozens of Zephyrian ships patrolled around it, but none of them detected the Ghost Rider. Human stealth technology had always been superior to anything the aliens possessed. "Lock onto the command center. Use the quantum torpedoes." The weapons fired without any visible flash or sound. The torpedoes were designed to phase through matter until they reached their target, then explode from the inside. The Zephyrian station's shields were useless against them. The explosion tore through the station's central hub. Emergency lights flickered and died as the command center collapsed into twisted metal. High Counselor Vextar died instantly, along with the entire staff that had planned the massacre of Ambassador Parker. Anderson opened a communication channel on all Zephyrian frequencies. "This is Captain Pete Anderson of the human fleet. The commander who ordered the murder of our diplomat is dead. This is just the beginning." 3 star systems away, Captain Jake Miller led his squadron toward a Zephyrian fleet near the Titan Nebula. Miller commanded the heavy cruiser Thunder, equipped with humanity's newest weapons. The gravity manipulators had been tested on asteroids, but never against enemy ships. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 5, reported his sensor officer. 12. Zephyrian vessels in attack formation. Miller smiled grimly. The aliens were still using traditional fleet tactics, expecting normal space combat. They had no idea what was coming. All ships, prepare gravity weapons. Target the largest vessel. First, the human weapons fired beams of invisible energy that twisted space itself. The Zephyrian flagship began to shake as gravitational forces pulled it in different directions. The alien crew tried to raise shields, but shields couldn't stop gravity. The ship came apart slowly, its hull stretching and tearing as the artificial gravity field ripped it to pieces. The crew inside died as their own bodies were pulled apart by forces they couldn't understand. The other Zephyrian ships tried to retreat, but Miller's squadron followed them. One by one, the gravity weapons tore them apart at the molecular level. No debris was left behind, just scattered atoms floating in space. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, Commander Rachel Stone worked around the clock to convert mining equipment into weapons. The planet's massive asteroid processing plants were being modified with Dr. Nina Walsh's biological research. The atmospheric processors are ready, Stone reported to the planet's military commander. We can deploy them on any Zephyrian world, within range. The devices looked harmless enough. They resembled the terraforming equipment humans use to make dead worlds livable. But these machines would do the opposite. They would pump toxins into the air that were specifically designed to kill Zephyrian biology. Target their military supply depot at Karish Prime, the commander ordered. Make sure they understand what happens when they murder diplomats. The processors were loaded onto cargo ships and launched toward Zephyrian space. To alien sensors, they looked like civilian supply vessels. The Zephyrians ignored them completely. 24 hours later, the atmosphere on Karish Prime began to change. The military base there held 50,000 Zephyrian soldiers and support staff. They all died within 6 hours as the air itself became poison to their species. Colonel Ben Harper's Special Forces teams struck deep behind enemy lines. These weren't normal military raids. They were precision assassination missions designed to spread terror through Zephyrian command structure. Harper's men moved like ghosts through alien installations. They killed Zephyrian officers in their own bedrooms. They destroyed supply depots that were supposed to be heavily defended. They left behind messages written in Zephyrian script. For Ambassador Parker. The psychological effect was devastating. Zephyrian commanders began to fear going to sleep. They moved constantly, never staying in one place for long. Some refused to leave their most heavily defended bunkers, but Harper's teams found them anyway. Dr. Nina Walsh made another breakthrough in her laboratory. She had been studying captured Zephyrian equipment when she discovered something interesting about their computer systems. Commander Stone, I need to show you this. The Zephyrians use biological processors in their computers, living tissue that processes data. Stone looked at the alien technology with new interest. Can we attack it? Better than that. We can infect it. I've developed a virus that will eat through their biological computers like acid. It spreads through their communication networks. Within days, the virus was deployed across Zephyrian space. Their ships began losing navigation systems. Command centers went offline. Even their personal communication devices stopped working as the biological components died. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing from within. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Morrison received reports of humanity's victories. The war that had seemed hopeless 3 years ago was turning into a rout. Every human attack succeeded. Every Zephyrian counterattack failed. Sir, Communications Officer Lucy Grant said, we're receiving surrender offers from 3 different Zephyrian colonies. They're asking for mercy. Morrison's face remained cold. Send them Ambassador Parker's final transmission. Tell them that mercy was what she was offering at Gamma 7 Station. The transformation of humanity shocked even their allies. The Centauri Federation sent diplomatic messages urging restraint. The Tau Ceti Alliance offered to mediate new peace talks. Morrison's response was simple. The time for restraint ended when they murdered our diplomats. The time for peace talks ended when they betrayed our trust. Captain Sarah Kim's destroyer, Vengeance, joined a task force heading for the Zephyrian industrial system of Vortex Prime. The planet produced most of the alien empire's advanced technology. Kim's orders were clear. Destroy everything. The human fleet arrived to find the system defended by over 100 Zephyrian warships. It should have been an impossible battle for the humans. Instead, it was over in 2 hours. The gravity weapons tore through enemy formations like they were made of paper. The virus-infected Zephyrian computers couldn't coordinate their defenses. The atmospheric processors turned the planet's air into poison. When the battle ended, Vortex Prime was a dead world. The industrial capacity that had supplied the Zephyrian war machine for decades was gone forever. News of the victory spread through human space like wildfire. After 3 years of desperate fighting, humanity was finally winning. But the cost of victory was becoming clear. The humans were no longer the same species that had sought peace at Gamma 7 Station. The betrayal had changed them into something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. The Zephyrians had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare, an enemy that would never stop, never forgive, and never show mercy. The war was almost over, but the real question was what humanity would become when it ended. 6 months after the massacre at Gamma 7 Station, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance as his fleet approached the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet Zephyr hung in space like a green and brown marble, surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. The systematic destruction of the Zephyrian Empire was nearly complete. Their military bases were ash. Their industrial worlds were poisoned wastelands. Their communication networks had been destroyed by Dr. Walsh's computer virus. The proud empire that had ruled dozens of star systems was reduced to a handful of refugee ships fleeing into deep space. "Status report," Morrison ordered. Tactical Officer Rodriguez looked up from his console. "All Zephyrian orbital defenses have been destroyed, sir. The planet is defenseless. Captain Nelson's bombardment fleet is in position and waiting for orders." Morrison nodded. Captain Troy Nelson commanded the human ships equipped with planet-killing weapons. Massive vessels that could crack a world's crust or boil away its atmosphere. The kind of weapons that civilized species never used. But humanity was no longer concerned with being civilized. "Sir," Communications Officer Grant said, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's High Counselor Zektor, the new Zephyrian leader." Morrison had heard of Zektor. He was Vextar's replacement, supposedly more reasonable than his predecessor. The alien had been sending desperate messages for weeks, begging for mercy, offering surrender terms. "Put him through," Morrison said. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Zephyrian in ornate robes. Zektor's skin showed the pale colors of fear and submission. Behind him, Morrison could see other alien officials, all looking terrified. "Admiral Morrison," Zektor said, his voice shaking. "Please, I beg you to listen. We surrender completely. We offer full reparations for the war. We will give you tribute, technology, anything you desire. Just spare our people." Morrison stared at the alien leader without expression. Around the bridge, his crew watched in silence. They all remembered Ambassador Parker's final words, broadcast 6 months ago. "High Counselor," Morrison said finally, "do you know why we're here?" "Yes, Admiral. We know we have lost the war. We accept defeat. We will submit to human authority." "No," Morrison replied. "You still don't understand. We're not here because you lost the war. We're here because you murdered our ambassador under a flag of truce." Zektor's skin patterns shifted to show confusion. "But Admiral, that was Vextar's decision. He is dead now. I had nothing to do with the betrayal at Gamma 7. Morrison opened a communication channel to broadcast across the entire Zephyrian homeworld. Every alien on the planet would hear his words. "6 months ago, Ambassador Lisa Parker came to your people seeking peace. She believed that both our species had suffered enough. She wanted to end the killing and find a way for us to coexist." He paused, letting his words sink in across 12 billion alien minds. "Your leaders pretended to want peace. They used our desire to end the war as a weapon against us. They murdered our diplomat and her entire delegation in cold blood. Then they attacked our defenseless colonies while our fleets were pulled back, For the peace talks. Zector tried to interrupt, but Morrison continued. You wanted to teach us a lesson about power. You wanted to show us that mercy was weakness. You believed that killing our leaders would break our spirit and force us to surrender. Morrison's voice grew colder. You were wrong about everything. Our mercy wasn't weakness. It was a choice. A gift we gave to our enemies because we believed in something better than endless war. The bridge crew nodded grimly. They had all seen what humanity could do when that gift was withdrawn. But you threw that gift back in our faces. You spat on our offer of peace and murdered the woman who brought it to you. So now you get to see what humanity looks like when we stop being merciful. Zector's skin showed desperate pleading colors. Admiral, please. Not all Zephyrians supported the betrayal. Many of us wanted real peace. We have civilians here, children, who had nothing to do with the war. Ambassador Parker had children too, Morrison replied. She left behind a daughter on Earth who will never see her mother again. Did Vextar think about that when he ordered her execution? The alien leader had no answer. Morrison opened another channel, this one to Captain Nelson's bombardment fleet. Captain Nelson, you are authorized to begin orbital bombardment of military targets only. Precision strikes. I want their government centers destroyed, but minimize civilian casualties. Zector's relief was visible on his alien features. His skin shifted to grateful blue patterns. But Morrison wasn't finished. However, he continued, the Zephyrian Empire as a political entity will cease to exist. Your worlds will become human, protectorates. Your military will be permanently disbanded. You will pay reparations to every human family affected by this war for the next 50 years. The bombardment began as Morrison spoke. Bright flashes lit up the planet's surface as government buildings and military installations were reduced to rubble. Your species will survive, High Counselor, but you will never again threaten another peaceful delegation. You will never again mistake mercy for weakness. Within hours, the capital city of the Zephyrian Empire was in ruins. The great towers where alien emperors had ruled for centuries were nothing but smoking craters. The military academies where young Zephyrians learned the art of war were wiped from the face of the planet, but the civilian areas remained intact. Human precision was absolute. News of Zephyr's fall spread across the galaxy within days. Other, alien species took note of what had happened. Humanity had transformed from a relatively peaceful expanding civilization into the galaxy's dominant military power. The message was clear. Humans could be bargained with, traded with, even befriended, but they could never be betrayed. A month later, Admiral Morrison stood in the Memorial Hall on Earth, looking at the new monument to Ambassador Lisa Parker and her delegation. The inscription read simple words that had become famous throughout human space. They died seeking peace, but their deaths taught the galaxy that humanity's mercy is a gift, not a weakness. Remove that gift at your own peril. Morrison placed a small bouquet of flowers at the base of the monument. He had brought roses, Parker's favorite flower according to her personnel file. We kept our promise, Lisa, he said quietly. They'll never forget what happens when they betray human trust. As he turned to leave, Morrison's communication device chimed. There was a meeting scheduled with representatives from 6 different alien species. All of them wanted to negotiate new treaties with humanity. Every meeting would begin the same way, with a moment of silence for the crew of the diplomatic ship Harmony. A reminder that human mercy was precious because it could be permanently withdrawn. The war was over. Humanity had won completely, but the victory had cost them something important. They were no longer the innocent, hopeful species that had reached for the stars with open hands. The galaxy had taught them a harsh lesson about trust and betrayal. Now they would teach that lesson to everyone else. The age of human dominance had begun,